YouTube, what is up everybody, Doomwake here, and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we are going to be discussing this lovely new Rhinos deck list that I just myself took all the way to an RCQ Finals. Unfortunately, as I sit here in front of you, I am not qualified for the regional championship, which I think that was for Denver. I did happen to lose in the finals, and I even have my pity prizes here just to kind of prove that to you. Get a little store credit, and then this lovely foil Death Shadow here. But yeah, so I did lose in the finals, but I had an amazing time, and I think we might have found something groundbreaking here with this Rhinos deck list. Now, the origin of this particular deck list, I was watching an Aspiring Spike stream, I believe this past Friday, as I usually do. Great guy, definitely go check him out. You may have heard of him by now. And he was playing this his Cascade Beans deck, and we were kind of discussing, and he had mentioned that he really does not want to play against Shieldred or Bowmaster. And Shieldred kind of piqued my interest, and I just kind of said to him jokingly, "What if we just put Shieldred in Rhinos?" And he's like, I think he said unjokingly, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea." So we initially, as soon as that comment came up, I went into Magic Online, kind of created this particular shell. It's been through a couple of iterations. Right now, this was the exact same deck list that I played in the RCQ. I have made some changes, mostly to the mana base since then, and I'll go over that in a second, but I wanted to just kind of showcase you guys the list that I played over the weekend. Now, first of all, you might think that I am an insane person because I'm splashing a double black card in my Temur deck, which you probably would be correct. But here's the theory. The Up the Beanstalk, the Cascade Beans, which is the deck that has been exploding in popularity over the past couple of weeks on Magic Online and in paper. There were two in the top 8 of my RCQ yesterday. And one of the best cards against them is the card that you see in front of you, Shieldred the Apocalypse, because a lot of ways they have to remove Shieldred involve casting 5 or 6 mana cards, like Leyline Binding, Solitude, even sometimes a Double Fury. And if they have one or multiple Up the Beanstalks in play, you put them in a position where it's basically impossible for them to kill the Shieldred without dying on the spots, because the Up the Beanstalk decks, specifically the Cascade ones, they're like Shardless Agent on turn 3, cast Beanstalk. Bloodbraid Elf on turn 4, cast Beanstalk. Do this. They almost will always have multiple Beanstalks in play, by turn 5 or something along those lines. And that's why Shieldred is so unbelievably powerful against them, because they simply cannot remove it from the battlefield without triggering Up the Beanstalk. And that was kind of the theory there, because the Beanstalk matchup from just the Temur Rhinos things, I played it, over the past couple of weeks a couple of times, as I was preparing for this RCQ, and ultimately also my Modern Super League match, which I'm going to be participating in this Wednesday. Head over to twitch.tv/OnZMTG if you want to cheer me on. It's going to be this Wednesday. I'm recording this on Sunday, so whenever that comes out. But I played a lot of that matchup from the Temur side of things, and it was helpless. I just kept getting destroyed by these Beanstalks, and I was really trying to figure out a way to kind of fix that matchup. And yeah, you do some things to the mana base. It definitely, you definitely lose some percentage points, like against Burn, because you have to play more Shocklands, and I ended up trimming on the second Forest and the second basic Island, so you definitely lose points against Blood Moon as well as this card is obviously not castable under Blood Moon. But at the end of the day, I really think the juice is worth the squeeze. Now, the other thing that Shieldred does, believe it or not, this card's really good. Like, I know, surprise. But there's just so many matchups where it just kind of can carry the game by itself. I played against Tron in that RCQ, and, I played like a Crashing Footfalls on turn 3, got in kind of a big chunk of damage, put my opponent down to like 11 or 10 life, and they played a ring, started to stabilize a little bit, but then I played a Shieldred. And they're put in this position where if they they take 2 from their draw step. If they activate the ring, they take 4 more, and they're just dead. Like, if they don't find a relevant spell that turn, they can no longer win the game because they can't activate the ring. They're just going to die next turn. So it comes up in matchups like that. It's exceptional in the Rhinos mirror because, as you can see, there's not a lot of good ways to remove a Shieldred from the battlefield. Fury deals 4 damage. Dead Gone deals 2 damage. Fire Ice deals 2 damage. So once Shieldred is on the battlefield, it is incredibly difficult to remove for these red-based strategies. Maybe the ones that have Unholy Heat possibly a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, it's just so funny to me that I initially thought that Shieldred was just kind of a meme or a joke, but it turned out it was one of the best cards in my deck. As far as the matchups in the RCQ were concerned, I played against Murktide round 1, ended up losing. Did lose a little bit to Blood Moon, so, it's not... Adding a double black card to your team or deck is not free, but I was able to defeat Scam in round 2, rather effortlessly. Can't speak today. Did cast Shieldred against them. It was fantastic. Played Tron, round number 3, beat them. Played Coffers, round number 4, beat them. Shieldred, again, came up multiple times in both of those matchups. Round 5, took an intentional draw into the top 8, and then in the top 8, I played against Temur Rhinos. Shieldred definitely came up, cast it, they couldn't kill it. And then I beat the Coffers rematch in the top 4, and then ultimately I did lose to the Beanstalk deck in the finals, but had some pretty rough draws and some rough mulligans, and was unable to, cast some Shieldreds in those particular matchups. So, just kind of, I was going to go over the deck list in, the entire deck list card for card, but to be completely honest with you, this is really what you've seen from stock Temur Rhinos at this point. Like, the shoe-in 4 of, so you have your 8 Cascade spells in the form of Violent Outburst and Shardless Agent. 4 Crashing Footfalls. I've seen people cut the, go down to 3 copies. Don't do that. Play 4 copies. You do need all 4. Force of Negation, a mainstay at this point. You have enough blue cards to support it. It's extremely good at fighting over Crashing Footfalls on your opponent's turn if you can combine that with Violent Outburst. Dead Gone, I think this is a bit of a point of contention. Some people play 3 copies. I prefer 4 because you're really rough against turn 1 Ragavan, especially when you're shaving on Fury. So I really do like the 4 copies of Dead Gone. 4 copies of Fire Ice, extremely powerful when you're on the play. This can almost feel like a pseudo Time Walk when you just tap your opponent's land on turn 2 and they can no longer play their spell that they were planning on casting. Lorien Revealed. This, ever since the printing of Lord of the Rings, this has kind of been a shoe-in 4 of. It's especially better in this version too, because when you're adding that fourth color in Shieldred, this also fixes your mana. You'll see we have a Xander's Lounge and a Watery Grave that we can both get to be able to cast Shieldred. And then the flex spots kind of here. 3 subtleties, some people play 4, some people play less. 3, I think you want 4 in the 75. You'll notice the 4th is in my sideboard, but I prefer 3 main deck right now. Put the 4th in the sideboard. 1 Mystical Dispute. I see people main deck like 2 to 3 copies of this, and I'm really not that big of a fan of it. It's okay against the 4-color decks because it does counter Teferi Time Raveler, but I have seen a lot of 4-color decks trim on Teferi, so I'm not even sure if you want to play any copies main deck, and it's particularly bad against Up the Beanstalk and their elementals, so not a big fan of that card. And then the other flex slots here, the 1 Fury and then the 1 Murktide. So pretty standard one-ups. Now, what did we cut to make room for the Shieldred? Previous lists were playing Flame of Anor, which is a card that we have since removed. Now, this card is weird. I played it at first, and just as kind of like with no wizards, and just as a modal spell that would let you draw 2, destroy an artifact, because it can blow up Chalice the Void or Engineered Explosives, both of which can be extremely relevant in post-board games. But it's kind of awkward when you don't have a wizard, because what you're paying for here is the flexibility. Well, you wouldn't pay 3 mana for any one of these modes and just put that card into your deck, because you can do that more efficiently in other ways. But without the wizards, the stuff like people have played Magus of the Moon over Blood Moon because that's a wizard. Some people even played Mutavault, which is kind of crazy to me that people were playing Mutavault in this deck, just to facilitate Flame of Anor. And that's kind of the point where I realized this is probably not worth it. So the Flame of Anors were kind of bad anyways, so I decided to cut those, and then, again, trimming on some number of Mystical Disputes, Subtleties, Furies. These numbers vary, and that's how we added the Shieldreds to the deck. Now, as far as the mana base is concerned, this is kind of the sketchiest part of the deck. So this mana base, we spent a little bit of time on it, working on it on stream. I talked with a couple of people on my Discord about it. It's a little rough, all right? I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's definitely a little rough. But, 4 Misty, 3 Scalding Tarn, 3 Foothills. As far as this configuration is concerned, I do believe that Misty is the best fetch land because you're still playing the basic forest and the basic island. The reason that these are here is Forest is good under Blood Moon because it casts Violent Outburst, and you need the basic island if you're going to play Lorien Revealed. So I think you want these basics with these setups. That's why Misty's the best fetch land. And what you kind of have to do from there is build your Shockland mana base around the fact that you have Misty, right? So I think in an initial version I had Blood Crypt, but Blood Crypt is a black-red land. Misty does not fetch that, so you don't want to play Blood Crypt. I do believe Xander's Lounge is the best triome if you're going to play basic Forest, because that pairing, that's just a natural pairing. You just go turn 1 Lounge, turn 2 basic Forest, you have all your colors set up. The sketchy lands here, so the ones that I'm not sure of yet, are the second Stomping Ground. The previous Temur versions played 2 Steam Vents, but we're playing 2 Stomping Grounds here because we're adding another blue source, a blue-black land in the form of Xander's Lounge. So with Watery Grave and Xander's, we have 2 blue-black lands, so we kind of want to pair that with 2 red-green lands. That's the theory behind the Stomping Ground. And then the other points of contention here are the Gemstone Caverns, which can be a little sketchy if you're on the play, because you can imagine if you're adding a double black card and you have a colorless land in your hand, it's probably not great. And then the Boseiju, but this is kind of like the 22nd land. Most Temur Rhino decks only play 21 lands, so the theory behind that was we would just add a land to the deck, and that would allow us to give us the room to play the Boseiju. Now, everything in total, the question I know that is all in your mind right now, should I play this in my local RCQ? And I think if you were intending on playing Temur Rhinos before, I think this is a noticeable upgrade. As far as the matchups are concerned, again, I think you need to be playing something as drastic as Shieldred to be able to give you some sort of chance in the Up the Beanstalk matchup, because I don't know about y'all, but I've played that matchup a lot from the Temur side of things, and it is miserable. I have been struggling mightily against the Beanstalk decks, so that's why, drastic measures need drastic lengths. They're something like that. But yeah, I think the other thing about Shieldred, as we've talked about a little bit earlier, it's just good in every matchup. What a world we live in 2023, where you can spend 4 mana for a 4/5 that has no ability when it enters the battlefield, and it's just one of the best cards in multiple formats, maybe even one of the best cards in Modern, which is kind of crazy to me, but that's just the world that we live in. And with fetch lands, almost anything is possible. So that is kind of the idea there. As far as matchups are concerned, most of the sideboarding is still the same. I will say, I'm going to try and get some, gameplay content with this deck out during the week, because I'm going to be spending some time on it Monday and Tuesday. Those videos, when my editor uploads them, will probably be somewhere around Thursday or Friday, perhaps maybe Saturday. But look out for some, actual gameplay with this deck. But as far as sideboarding is concerned, a lot of you might say, do you board out Shieldred in any matchup? So far, I haven't. I played, what did I play? Murktide, Tron, Scam, Coffers, 4-color, and the Rhinos Mirror match. I did not cut a single Shieldred in any of those matchups. I think the card, if you're going to go to these kinds of lengths to be able to splash this type of card, you've come to the conclusion that it's good. It's just a good card, and it's one of the best cards in your deck, and I do think that is the case. Therefore, I likely would not want to be trimming on any number of copies in any matchups. But the sideboard cards you can probably gather pretty self-explanatory. Commandeer is mostly here for the 4-color decks, big mana like Tron, decks that have Teferi Time Raveler, just spells that you would really want to steal. It's an extremely high-impact card, but because you have to pitch 2 cards, you can't really afford to play a second copy. The 4th copy of Subtlety, again, good against Teferi, good against Primeval Titan, things like that. Mystical Dispute, good against blue decks. Obsidian Sharmaw, good against Tron. Fury, good. This is kind of a weird one. I think it's kind of okay against Murktide. The main reason I wanted the Fury in the sideboard is because I'm making my deck a little bit weaker to Blood Moon, so I wanted to have an extra copy of Fury to be able to board and have something that I can actually cast that impacts the board when my opponent brings in Blood Moon. So that's the idea behind that. Questing Beast, very good against Ring. I will note, I played against Tron in the RCQ. They played Ring, and I had a Questing Beast in my hand. It wasn't lethal, but it was really satisfying to be able to play Questing Beast and have that particular line of text matter. And then 3 Force of Vigors, self-explanatory. 3 Endurances, also self-explanatory. As far as what to cut, most of the time you cut Dead Gun against the non-creature decks where they don't have a lot of targets for the shock. Dispute against anything that's not playing blue. I cut Force of Negation against... It's kind of strange. I've been trimming on Force of Negation against Murktide. I don't know if that's correct, but Force of Negation lines up really awkwardly when you have Shardless in that matchup, because you Shardless into Rhinos, you can't fight over your Rhinos on your own turn, and then if their follow-up threat is Murktide, what are you doing with your Force of Negation? So I've been trimming these against Murktide. The Subtleties stay in against 4-color. They... not very good against Murktide. Oh, another thing, Subtlety is extremely good against Scam. So one of the better ways for the better plays that you have against Scam opening, like if they go turn 1 Grief with a mana up, just play Subtlety. Put their Grief on top, or they probably will put on the bottom in that case. Just some tips there. One last thing before I let you go. I know this video was kind of jumbled, but I wanted to get this and show you guys this deck so you can have something to look forward to throughout the week, is the updated version. Now, the updated version, as far as the spells are concerned, has not really changed much. I ended up cutting the Murktide for the Pulse, just as mana considerations, because double blue is a little tough. The mana base is where you'll see most of the work done. So we've cut down on Foothills and Scalding Tarns, and we're going with maximum Verdant Catacombs, because Verdant Catacombs gets everything but Steam Vents, but to be honest with you, because you have Sanders Lounge, Steam Vents isn't as necessary early anyways. And Lorien gets Steam Vents too. So you don't really need your fetch lands to get Steam Vents as much, because that's the one you're getting most often with Lorien. I'm keeping the Caverns and the Boseiju for now. Still some, ultimate work needs to be done on that stuff. And then the sideboard's the exact same. So 1 spell and then, 4 or 5 lands that changed. But yeah, like I said, look forward to throughout the week. There's definitely going to be some gameplay with this deck. I have a couple of different, I have another version of Rhinos, as you can see at the top there. I won't spoil that one. You'll have to wait for later in the week on a video for that. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought in the comments. Like I said, you're gonna really enjoy the gameplay when it comes out later this week. This deck has been a blast, and I've been crushing the 4-color decks, with the exception of the one that I lost in the finals with, but we won't talk about that. In any case, I will let you go, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.